welcome to Flourish and Flow. I'm your host, Amy Rohrer, yoga teacher and owner of the Yoga Hut in Tillsonburg, here to help you connect the dots to true wellness on your healthy living journey. Because if my own wellness journey has taught me anything, is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to flourishing, and everyone's path is a little bit different. We are here today at Breeze Fresh Market in Ostrander. They are one of our show sponsors, so a big thank you to Bree and Kyle for having us here to film this season. And I would also like to say a big thank you to our additional show sponsors, Laura from Escape Salon and Spa in Tillsonburg, and Jen from Hometown Style in Ingersoll. On today's episode, we are joined by certified personal trainer, Holly Smith. Holly holds a bachelor's degree in kinesiology and now owns a private training studio in Tillsonburg and also coaches clients online. Passionate about all things health and training, her goal is to help others learn how to put their health first, move better, and adopt a healthy, sustainable lifestyle. So welcome, Holly. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about your journey growing up as an elite athlete and now owning your own training studio back in Tillsonburg, kind of the in-between.
Right. Yeah. So I grew up a competitive athlete. I played ringette until I was about 18 years old. I played high-level ringette.
Okay.
And that really, that team environment, I was always kind of caring about performance and how I can get better. So health was always a priority for me, as well as working out. I fell in love with science in school, and I really loved kind of trying to understand how the body worked, how the body moved, and everything like that. So when I found out what kinesiology was, it was kind of that perfect marriage of the two. So sports and science kind of meeting each other.
Right.
So I pursued that in university. And when I was in university, I ended up contracting a virus, and I got really sick. For about 3 months, I was bedridden pretty much. And in that time period, I was obviously in school learning about nutrition and physiology and all of these things, but that time period for me really kind of taught me how to dive inward in my own health. I obviously had to get blood work done and all of these things to figure out what was going on and kind of what I can do to get out of that. So that time period for me was really just diving into that personalized health, and that kind of taught me that, again, going from that athlete about kind of how can I help the team perform, it was really on me to get better and kind of heal myself and figure out what was going on. So I continued through university, graduated, and then I got certified during my last year of school. And I started working as a trainer right away. I coached a lot of group classes, which I really did love, but I kind of really fell in love with the one-on-one training more. It gave me an approach to get to know my clients and really get to know their health status and kind of how their personal movement mechanics were and how their movement patterns were based on, previous injuries as well as kind of their fitness level at that time. So that kind of progressed me, and then I started working with athletes. So I got a job at a strength and conditioning gym. I worked with athletes, and again, that kind of brought me full circle. And we really, again, when you're training athletes, you really have to focus on performance, and all of those health factors become even more important. At that same time, I was working with kind of in the training world what we call general population. So that's just everybody who's not an athlete, basically. And I kind of took the approach of training them the same way I train my athletes. So, I had asked them all the health questions, sleep questions, stress, all of those factors. And I really kind of formed that holistic approach around training that wasn't just their movement patterns, but all of those factors kind of going into their health. And I, worked with them the same way I would train my athletes movement wise. We would train stability, strength, mobility, all of those factors. And it was just, maybe I wasn't doing speed work with them and things like that. But it was really that personalized approach that I kind of developed. And then fast forward to 2020, I started my own business. So I started renting space and I started doing just one-on-one training. I was doing online coaching as well at the time, but really my one-on-one kind of personalized training was my big ticket. And I worked with people and again, really honed in on that personalized approach and really focusing on that individuality that is health. Really, asking those questions of how's your sleep, how is your stress, and adapting those clients to whatever they were going through in their life. In 2021, I went through a lot of hormone issues myself. And again, I kind of had to adapt the way I was training. I couldn't train as hard as I used to be able to. And I take that same approach with my clients. So I've had the same clients now, a lot of them for 4 years. And I think I attest that to just getting to know them on a personal level, figuring out how they move, gearing their workouts towards their movement mechanics and what will benefit them, but also understanding that they're people. They're going to go through stress. If they're not sleeping, you know, I tailor the workouts to whatever they're going through and adapt. And I think that's kind of what sets us apart, is we really take that client on, personalize everything for them, not just in the gym, but, you know, we talk about every other aspect of health. And that's kind of what we do, is just that real personalized approach, and just having clients adopt, you know, a healthy training life, but also a healthy lifestyle outside of that as well.
I love all of that.
Yeah.
And it's really, that's kind of like the philosophy behind the show.
Right.
Flourish and Flow is that there's no one way to flourish, and that there are these pillars that are important, but everyone is going to need to maybe start at a different place or focusing on a different pillar, but learning how to integrate like the importance.
Exactly.
That, you know, we can't just be focusing on movement and not what we're eating.
Totally.
What we're telling ourselves, like our inner conversation and mindset and sleep and stress. So I love, and that's really what drew me to want to have you on the show, is kind of your own outlook and how you do that with your clients. So we have lots to chat more about. Maybe quickly before we go to break, what are some of the misconceptions that you find maybe stop people from taking action to work with someone one-on-one? It can be maybe intimidating at first, but what are some of those maybe barriers that you hear people say?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times people think personal training is just, I'm going to yell at you, make you do 50 burpees, and, you know, it's just the workout, I want you crawling out of the gym. And it's not like that at all. Again, with my background in education and human movement, it's really like a personalized approach, and we take it very slow. We start with the foundation, build the mobility, the stability, and then we progress to strength training movements. And everyone is so different where their starting point. So that's kind of the biggest thing, I think, is people just fear that aggressive personal trainer, and it's not that at all.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with Holly shortly.
This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Find out what's happening in your community by watching Woodstock City Council. Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. on Rogers TV Channel 13 or streamed at rogerstv.com.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
They've reached the summit! Back-to-back Stanley Cup victories.
Greatness.
And a new legacy begins. Absolutely amazing. It has happened in Vegas.
It's not a destination.
And lightning has struck twice.
It is a continuous journey that never ends.
These are the moments you dream of. Stanley Cup champions.
Welcome back to Flourish and Flow. I'm your host, Amy Rohrer, joined today by Holly Smith, personal trainer, and you often see some common imbalances. So we thought it would be great if you could talk about kind of how you would get somebody started. There's a movement assessment, and then you're going to talk about some of those commonalities, and you could give us some tips on how to address those imbalances that you see in some of your clients.
Yeah, so commonly when we have people come in, we see a couple very common issues that tend to arise. When we onboard a client, we always start with a questionnaire. We have them fill out a questionnaire, kind of going over their medical stuff, past injuries, everything like that, so we can kind of get a feel for how they move.
Right.
And then when they come in for their first session, we do a movement assessment. So we go over mobility, stability, a little bit of strength and balance, and we kind of see where their body is. Now, obviously it's a very individualized approach, but with doing this for a while, we kind of see some common things that come up often. A lot of the times, of course, we are all pretty sedentary, we're sitting a lot, so a lot of the times clients will complain that their hips are really tight. And oftentimes when we do the assessment, we see that they're actually not tight, they're just very weak. So they have, you know, weak hips, weak hip flexors, glutes, and hamstrings. And when we do this assessment, oftentimes we see that, you know, that tightness that they're complaining is just stemming from weakness, and they just need to kind of move their bodies and help strengthen that area.
Right.
So a couple ways we can kind of see this weakness is I have clients stand on one leg, and it's just as simple as this. If I see them wobbling a lot, that's kind of an indication for us that they might have some weakness in the hips. We can take that a step further. When they're standing on one leg, is their knee caving inward? Oftentimes when the knees come inward, we call that knee valgus, and we can see that that's not from the knees, it's actually usually stemming from weak hips and weak hip flexors, so that those muscles aren't able to support the knee, and then the knees come inward. So that's a way that we see if someone has weak hips. Another way we see is grabbing this knee and pulling it up above the hip joint and then letting go and seeing, can they hold that knee up in that position? If they do that and the knee drops, oftentimes that's a signal that their hips are quite weak. So those are some kind of tools and movements that we do to kind of assess. So if we end up finding out that somebody does have weak hips, we can kind of do different movements and work up to squats, deadlifts, and lunges to help strengthen them. Those are kind of the best thing we can do. But before that, we like to kind of mobilize and stabilize that joint. So we start out usually with just some easy hip circles. So just bringing that joint through its range of motion can really help kind of alleviate that and help start activating those muscles that haven't been used. The next one we like to do is just standing on one leg, just swinging that leg out and bringing it back down. So just as simple as that. If you need to use a chair, you can for balance, just bringing it out and then in. And then we like to add bands. So if that's too easy, we like to have clients step into the band, place it just below the knees, and then perform that same movement in and out. So that's a great one to do to build up hip strength. The other thing we like to do is, again, that same test that I had clients do like this, and just letting that knee stay there, just holding this position for 20, 30 seconds is really great for developing really strong hips. Yeah, so that's kind of what we like to see for hips. The other common issue that we see is a lot of clients are coming in with really rounded shoulders and really tight backs. Again, everyone is looking downwards for most of the day. It's sedentary. That's a very common issue that we see. So in these clients, oftentimes when we perform the assessment, we start to realize it's not necessarily their shoulder that's coming inward, it's that their back muscles are so stretched and tight that they're causing those shoulders to come forward. And their shoulder blades, so their scapula, is kind of protracted forward, and we need to retract it back and really open up that chest. So commonly, again, for assessment wise with these, we have them perform a couple different movements, but usually if someone has internally rotated shoulders, it's pretty obvious. They're kind of hunched forward. So for this, in this instance, we have clients do an exercise where we're using a wall. So if I pretend I have a wall here, arms are about shoulder width apart, and we have them just slide their arms up the wall and come back down. What this does is it activates a muscle called the serratus, and that helps pull the shoulder blades down and back. So that's really what's going to get your shoulders and your back in a proper position instead of being forward. And again, with that exercise, we can use a band. So going right around the wrists in this position, we can abduct the shoulders, so pull out, slide up the wall, and then come back down. And that's a great one you can do at home just to kind of work on pulling those shoulders back. The other thing we like to do is have clients work on getting into external rotation. So what this means is just pulling those shoulders back kind of in this position here and working those shoulder blades. Okay, so I like to have people come up like this, close the hands, thumbs are facing each other, have them come back to about a 90-degree position for each arm, getting those thumbs back behind the head and almost like you're trying to pinch your shoulder blades together. So you can even do those just body weight coming back like this and forward. And what that does is again helps pull those shoulder blades down and back and helps just correct that posture. And again, over time we progress to doing different things like rows and different things with weights, but just starting with that is perfect to just help people again open up that chest and get those muscles working that have been in a lengthened position for so long.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for demonstrating.
Of course.
That's great for people to kind of see.
Yes, absolutely.
How you could create some balance in those areas that a lot of people struggle with. You know, tight neck, shoulders, hips. So that's great. And I'm just wondering if you can touch on if somebody wants to start with you, what's that process? Because you do the one-on-one, but there's also online, or you might work with people for longer periods of time. Kind of talk about the options to get started.
So typically people can email. That's kind of the best way to get in touch, or social media messaging. And then I kind of just discuss with them what their goals are. And then I have different options, again, online training. So maybe they just want to go to the gym and train themselves, but they need a program to follow. So that's where the online comes in. Some people like a lot of accountability, so we do once a week check-ins. Some people just want a program and they just want to go. So we have those options. And then for in-person, we have just the one-on-one coaching is our main thing. We do some partner training or like husband and wife training. And again, they just email, I send them over a questionnaire, we figure out scheduling, and then they're booked in, and then they can kind of decide how long they want to stay with us. There's no like commitment or anything like that. We do encourage people a couple months usually just to see the benefits. And then, that's how you can work with us.
Okay, and how can people get in touch?
Email. So hollysmithhealth@outlook.com is my email is the best place to find us.
And you are on social media?
Yes. Social media is just Holly Smith Health, everything. I think Facebook's Holly Smith Health and Training, and then my website, hollysmithhealth.com.
Thank you so much, Holly, for walking us through that little bit of a demo. And
of course.
More info. So we will chat more with Holly. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this short break.
Find out what's happening in your community by watching Oxford County Council. Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on Rogers TV Channel 13 or streamed at rogerstv.com.
Hi, I'm Kate Burns-Gallagher, your host of Next Week Today in St. Thomas, Elgin. This show is about all the things in your community, from people, events, and activities. Join us every week, Wednesdays at 8 p.m., only on Rogers TV.
This is a perfectly healthy child. What's unhealthy are birth alerts, a racist practice that may stop this Indigenous mother from going home with her newborn. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
I'm Melissa, and I'm the Community Engagement Specialist at Rogers TV. I want to give a big shout out to all of our volunteers who have dedicated their time in helping create television programming for the community. Thank you to all of our volunteers, whether in front of the camera or behind it. Thank you for everything you do. We couldn't do it without you.
Touched on it. You talked a little bit at the beginning of how important you think it is to take that holistic approach, and you really dive more into what's going on in someone's life and kind of looking at some of those key pillars that I think are really important to helping someone flourish. So if you wanted to chat a little bit more about that, what are some of those key themes or pillars that you think are important to helping someone flourish?
Yeah, I think that when we start with people, we always ask questions like, how is your sleep? How is your sleep quality? You know, how many hours are you getting? What is your stress level like? And even questions like, what do you like to do for fun? We ask questions around nutrition more behaviorally, because I'm not certified as a nutritionist, but we ask questions just to kind of get a feel for their personality. You know, we train a lot of high achieving type A type people who are on 5 hours of sleep and maybe they're not eating enough and things like that. So all of those play a role in their exercise and what type of training we have them do. You know, for example, we're not going to have someone who's maybe not sleeping a lot and they're not eating a lot do high intensity training. It's just going to be counterproductive for them. So all of those factors, like I said, play a role in what type of exercise we have them do. And we always want to set clients up to benefit and not be overstressed or overtrained. So that's where that individualized approach comes in. Stress and mindset is one of the most important ones. You know, like I said earlier, I've had clients, the same clients for 4 years. And of course, through that 4 years, there's different things that come up in life and different stressors. And, you know, I have an open dialogue with my clients and we're kind of open about what they're going through so that I can then modify their training. Because again, if they're super stressed out, I'm not going to have them being, you know, I'm not going to push them to their limit because that exercise is a stress. Right. So you don't want to overdo it in that capacity. And we have discussions like, you know, maybe you just had a baby and your sleep is not the greatest. So maybe we need to dial the nutrition in and make sure we're hydrated, things like that. Meeting people where they're at is really what we focus on.
Yeah, so important to have those conversations. Like Definitely. You said, if someone's going through a really stressful time, it's important for you to know that. So
Absolutely.
You're not pushing them past their limits or outside of their capacity.
Yes.
Right? That can actually add more stress.
Exactly.
To the body.
Yeah, totally.
So speaking more about yourself, you know, what does your own self-care routine look like? You know, what do you like to do for fun and how do you nourish yourself?
Yeah, so really for fun, I love going by the water. Like being by water is just so calming to me. I love being active in just my regular life. Like going for a nice slow walk is kind of my form of meditation and just calming down. So those are things that I really love to do. Self-care for me is just, you know, eating well, eating nourishing foods that help make me feel good, doing things like if that week I'm a little bit more tired, listening to my body and actually slowing down and not pushing through that. Again, as I said earlier, I've dealt with hormone issues and I've been burnt out before and I know what that feels like. And you know, your body will nudge you and try to tell you, slow down, and if you don't listen, you'll pay the consequence in the long run. So just self-care to me is listening to those little cues our body is saying to us and, you know, adapting our lifestyle to what's necessary at that time. Maybe that's, you know, slowing down a little bit, or maybe it's working out a little bit less, you know, going down to 1 or 2 days a week instead of 4 or 5. So for me, just being in tune with myself and making sure I'm not going too fast and being too busy to not notice those little cues.
That's huge. Yeah, I'm so glad you touched on that because sometimes, you know, self-care can be a buzzword and we think we need to be doing all these fancy things, but really just listening to ourselves is
absolutely
one of the most powerful forms of self-care that we can do. I remember I had a yoga teacher once say, like, your body doesn't care about your to-do list. Yeah. It doesn't care how many things you have on your to-do list. You know, that's more of our own kind of ego pushing to achieve, but our body does talk to us. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that. And what's it like to be back in Tillsonburg and like kind of working and serving your community? Yeah, how do you feel about getting to be back in Tillsonburg?
Yeah, it's definitely full circle for me. I grew up here. I left to go to school and I lived in St. Catharines for 6 years. So coming back here was definitely full circle. It's funny, like I train friends' parents and sisters and brothers and whoever else. So it's kind of cool being back in that community and, you know, knowing people and getting to work with them in a different capacity is really cool.
Yeah. And so you started in 2020.
Yes.
Was it before the pandemic?
right in the middle.
In the middle, good for you.
Yeah. It was a challenge, and we just, again, you adapt and adjust, just like, health and life, and made it work, and
So what have been your biggest takeaways as far as running your own business and kind of getting through the pandemic?
Yes.
And what are a few things that you've learned for those who might want to start their own business?
I think the biggest thing is just, again, going off of what I said earlier, is just listening to your own cues. I'm actually not a type A personality. I like downtime. I like to be able to relax. And, in the beginning of my business, I was so go, 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 because I thought that's what an entrepreneur did. And when I actually started to tune into my personality and what I need, I can't work all day long with no break. I need a break for myself. I need to go for my walk. I need to do what I need to do. So I think the biggest thing as an entrepreneur is just focusing on what you can do, and maybe hiring out for other things, or just tuning into what makes you feel good, because if you're not good, the business isn't good. So that's kind of the biggest takeaway I had during that time, and I dealt with burnout and just kind of tuning into what I need in order to serve others.
So to move towards the end of our interview here today, I like to do a lightning round. So if you didn't get any of the questions, you got really good eyesight. Maybe. So some fun pop questions, and it's just kind of like whatever comes to your mind for people to get to know you. If you were a superhero, what would your power be?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I would say taking people's pain away, I guess. There's certain instances where you can do all the strength training in the world and things like that, but if it's someone's struggling with, say, arthritis or something, you can modify your diet and things like that, but there's still maybe pain with that, and I just hate to see that for people, so probably that.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
A lot of people could be knocking on your door.
Right.
So, and I hope that people still do. Favorite meal to eat this time of year as we head into fall?
Ooh. You know what? With eating, I'm such a creature of habit. I feel like this doesn't really apply to fall, but I just love a good steak dinner. That's probably my favorite thing to cook and to eat. I love cooking, so steak dinner with mushrooms is the best thing for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a nickname that your friends or family used to call you?
Probably just Halls. Yeah, just Halls.
Yeah. Favorite thing about the work that you do?
I think just seeing people kind of step into their power and their confidence, and I train mostly women, we train men as well, but seeing them gain confidence in themselves and know that they can do hard things and they are strong, I think that's probably the best part, most rewarding.
And what does living a flourishing life mean to you?
I think, again, just being able to listen to your body's cues and tune in to what's good for you and not worry about what other people are doing or what's best for them, is just figuring out what you enjoy and what makes you feel good and just doing that.
Lovely, and you're doing it, and we're lucky to have you. I think we've just got so many people doing great work in Oxford County and around this area, so thank you for giving back and sharing your wisdom and lots of great tips that you shared here today. And one more time, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more, reach out, how can they do so?
They can go to my website, hollysmithhealth.com. I have kind of all the information there, and my Instagram, I post a lot of videos and good content on there about training and health, and that's just Holly Smith Health. And they can email me, hollysmithhealth@outlook.com, if they want to work together.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. On behalf of our show sponsors, thank you to Bree and Kyle from Bree's Fresh Market, Jen from Hometown Style, and Laura from Escape Salon and Spa. Until next time, may you continue to flourish and find your flow.